This is Up. I'm Joshua Johnson in for David Gura. A new Democratic majority in the House means more scrutiny of the president. According to Vox, 10 new Democratic House committee chairs are about to make Mr. Trump's life even tougher. An impeachment of the president could originate in the Judiciary Committee. Congressman Elijah Cummings could turn up the heat on Mr. Trump's businesses in the Oversight Committee. We may see those elusive tax returns via the Ways Committee. And Congressman Adam Schiff of the Intelligence Committee has set his sights on the Russia probe.
We know in the run-up to this meeting at Trump Tower that there were phone calls going back and forth between Trump Jr. And the Russian oligarch's son, Emin Agalarov. And sandwiched between those calls back and forth between Don Jr. and Emin Agalarov is a blocked call. And we wanted to know, did that come from the president? When we are constituted, we can get those phone records.
Let's talk this out with NBC Intelligence and National Security reporter Ken Dilanian joining us from Washington. Ken, what are you watching for in these investigations now that the Democrats are in charge?
Joshua, if it seemed like the last 2 years in Washington were chaotic and tumultuous and full of fireworks, just wait, because these Democrats have a host of investigations planned. Obviously, I cover the Russia investigation, so I'm most focused on what could come out of that. And also related to that is the Democratic effort to obtain Donald Trump's tax returns. You know, as you know, Trump was the first major party nominee in 40 years, other than Gerald Ford, not to have released his returns. And the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Richard Neal, has a plan to use an obscure 1924 law to demand those returns and to make them public. Now, he doesn't expect to get them right away because there will be some litigation, he believes, could go on for months. But there's so many other investigations, things that aren't even front burner issues. For example, Joshua, the decision to cancel the plans for the FBI to move to a headquarters outside of Washington, D.C. To what extent was Donald Trump involved in that, and will that benefit his hotel across the street? That's something, just to cite one example, that Democrats are going to investigate.
Before I come back to the panel, Ken, some of the members of Congress that we've spoken to, including Adam Schiff, who I had the pleasure of speaking to earlier, spoke very temperately. They said that they weren't just going to be handing out subpoenas like party favors, to borrow from Congressman Cummings. Do you get the sense that the members of the Democratic House caucus are eager to dive in with subpoenas? They're being a little more measured. What's the pace look like?
They're being very calculating. They have a plan. They know that you don't just throw subpoenas out. First, you do what's called a chairman's letter, where you sort of ask nicely, because it's actually more difficult than people understand to enforce a congressional subpoena. And you have to establish a record to the court that you've tried to ask in other ways and you've tried to get the information every way possible. And it's also true that Congress has leverage. They have appropriations levers that they can threaten agencies with withholding money, and they will extract information that way. But at the end of the day, there will be subpoenas, Joshua, there will be fireworks, there will be litigation, and then they realize they're not going to get everything that they asked for, but there will be some revelations. This is the first time Donald Trump has faced an adversarial Congress, and I'm not sure he really understands what that means.
Mike Pesca, the president, is already responding to the potential of some of these subpoenas. Here is something that he tweeted just this morning regarding potential campaign finance violations. The president tweeted, quote, "Many people currently a part of my opposition, including President Obama and the Dems, have had campaign violations, in some cases for very large sums of money. These are civil cases. They paid a fine and settled. While no big deal, I did not commit a campaign violation." So maybe he's starting to get out ahead of this, although he's kind of talked about this sort of thing before.
Yeah, they always muddy the waters with the Obama campaign finance violations, which were more of a disclosure, and the amount of money that they always talk about is the total amount of money donated, it's very different from what we're talking about, which is a quid pro quo, possibly from a foreign government. Here's the thing about all the subpoenas. Beyond just introducing new evidence, I think they will focus our attention. I think that's really important because journalists have unearthed so many indisputable factual items that cast a dark shadow on Trump's past dealings. Adam Davidson's reporting in the New Yorker about his Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, or that great New York Times story that really down how he skirted all these laws in inheriting wealth from his father. And those, for a couple of reasons, there's no actual criminal charge there, they kind of went nowhere. They're just one of these things out there in the ether. But like a hanging, a congressional subpoena has the ability to concentrate the mind. So I think that will be a power of these subpoenas.
We did an hour on that New York Times long read, which was so worth reading, and it was just, there was so much in there, it was almost too hard to know where to focus. But Waj, I wonder if that's also maybe the risk for Democrats, is that, you know, attention spans being what they are, we got to be very careful what we focus on as an electorate. The Democrats, I imagine, have to be very careful on not just what they subpoena, but what they subpoena first.
Yeah, but you can bring out a DC cliche here, and, you know, people can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think the financial trail, like you said, that's what they're going to concentrate on. It's nerdy work, but that's what's really, I think, going to cripple Donald Trump. Because you also had his right-hand man, Michael Cohen, who named him as individual one, right? You're talking about the Southern District of New York, the filings, who helped coordinate and direct the campaign finance violation, the alleged campaign finance violation. And look, Donald Trump loves Game of Thrones, so he does pop cultural attribution all the time, right? Appropriation. Subpoenas are coming. And they're going to be coming. They're going to be the financial trail to Russia, the financial trail to Saudi Arabia, the Deutsche Bank connection. That's going to be Maxine Waters, who isn't going to be dumb. And also, let's not forget the Foreign Affairs Committee. They're going to find out about this Trump property in Panama. That's another scandal that no one knows about. And I think it's going to add to the specter of a president who is corrupt, who is using and abusing his presidency, who's using the presidency as an ATM. And leading up to 2020, it's going to cripple him.
I got to give the last word to Ken Delaney. And you got me there because I'm thinking about season 8. I'm like, I can't wait for April. Ken, where does this go from here? Is there a timeline for when this all might get rolling, or is that still kind of up in the air?
Oh, it's going to get rolling rather quickly, Joshua. And I think that the one thing about the Democrats is they are working very closely together. They have a plan, and they realize that problem that you are, which is, you know, you have to sort of create a narrative for the American public. You can't just bury them in scandal after scandal, and they're thinking very carefully about how to do that. The committees are working together. You would think there'd be rivalries over which pound of flesh each committee chairman gets, but my understanding is they are meeting, they're hashing this out, and it's going to start rolling almost as soon as they get back to Washington. That's NBC's Ken Delaney in Washington. Ken, thanks very much. You bet. Coming up, critics are coming after Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over a video posted online. What's drawing fire and how it could backfire. Next.